back to Change Ed.
Change it.
I am your favorite host of the most viewed educational podcast in Norristown, Pennsylvania. Andrew Kuhn, education consultant from Montgomery County Intermediate Unit. Here with me is
Patrice Semichek. I'm not saying my title anymore. Also from the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit. We've established this, have we not, Tony?
Tony Marvito, SDF.
Multiple times.
Yes. So great to have you both here. Thanks for coming to the show. As always, we have with us today a very
nice human.
Interconnected.
This is the better Andrew.
Yes. That's no.
Yeah.
I can't believe I agreed to that.
Totally staying.
We have a gentleman who is super connected in the science world, but for a reason, intentionally trying to build up networks and help us with the work that we do, and has some interesting things that he's going to share with us about the work that's being done in the state, as well as the NSTA conference that's coming to Philadelphia.
Wow.
Please hold back your excitement. If you could add in an applause right there, that'd be great. We'd like to welcome to the show Andy Walton. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today.
The better Andy.
Okay.
Oh, can we call you Andy now?
We're going to edit all that out. Would you, sir, please just, I know we introduced you, but if you would just tell us a little bit about yourself, where are you at, where have you been? How'd you get there?
Yeah, thanks again for having me today. So I'm a science teacher at North Penn High School. I teach environmental science, and I've been a teacher for 17 years now, something like that. Outside of teaching, I'm involved in the state organization, the PA Science Teacher Association. So I'm a 2-time president. I'm currently a regional rep for PSTA and super involved in what's going on statewide. So as part of the Steele's writing committee, got a chance to work on the steering committee side of things, helping direct where the standards were going and helping to just build some of the educational parts of things in Pennsylvania to help support teachers through the Steele's implementation. I'm also currently the regional director for NSTA, which represents Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey. And it's a great chance to learn and collaborate with teachers from different states who are actually ahead of us with the implementation of NGSS or Steele's, as we know here in Pennsylvania. So yeah, it's been a great honor to work with teachers throughout the country, really, and bring teachers together and help to hopefully better education and drive teachers to just succeed more in the classroom and help our students be successful learners and honestly better citizens in the long run from there.
So you have a lot of free time.
A lot of free time, yeah. Outside of that, I'm a swim coach. I manage a pool.
And you come on podcast.
And I come on podcasts.
Yes.
Truly is the better Andy.
Truly is the better
And
Andy.
cut. So tell us about that experience. I'm really interested in that. Your experience of being part of the writing team for the ELNS part. I mean, did you start with nothing? Was there some framework that you all looked at? How did that
Before you even get there, how did you even get picked? How did it come about?
Yeah, so it was a whole application process. Being president of PSTA was kind of helped a lot with that. So we had a few board members that actually got on the team. Some were part of the writing. So there was a writing committee and a steering committee. The writing committee took all the national standards, looked at a lot of the different stuff. They took NGSS, the framework, and then Pennsylvania put its twist on it. So we worked more in the guidance of things. Are we going the right direction? How do we keep environmental standards separate? Do we put them in with each grade level band or whatever? So NGSS does not have environmental as a separate strand. So we started that way. And then there was a lot of state organizations that were pushing towards making sure we kept our environmental standards separate. So then we went back the next summer and actually went and had to write standards because the bio and chemistry were able to take a lot of stuff from NGSS where we had to basically start fresh and write a lot of the environmental standards.
So how did you figure out what would be part of the standards? That seems like an arduous process.
We did look at the Pennsylvania standards currently. One of the key parts with Steele's is that it does take a look at very localized things and gives people the opportunity to gear it towards their local environment and whatever. Pennsylvania has a very unique state with big cities and rural agriculture. So the agriculture was a huge part of that. So we based it off of that. We based it off of some of the stuff in NGSS, but it was a process, that's for sure.
Sounds like it.
So what I heard you say was that, and I'm going to quote you on this from Andy Walton, that Steele's is better than NGSS because we've added more.
Yeah, I mean, Pennsylvania's good at putting its own twist on things. We'd love to do that. Yeah. So it really does take a look at the Pennsylvania agriculture and the uniqueness of Pennsylvania.
And there's so much benefit to that, and talk about making it localized, which is really the idea of NGSS. Instead of it being a national curriculum, how do we make it more localized for learning? So what has been your experience as an environmental education educator?
Person.
That did not roll off well.
You want to try that again?
Nope. felt good
Okay.
in the moment. So what has been your experience for classroom instruction when it comes to this? Are you constantly trying to get students out of the classroom? Are you doing inside the class, a mixture? What does it look like for you?
Sure. Yeah. I think it really comes down to the school. I mean, I think there's schools that are lucky to have environmental centers close by or on their campus, but I don't think that's unique. I think the way that Steels is written, you could be in the inner city Philadelphia and be able to do, a local park or what's happening on the sidewalk or the roof of your building, really kind of involving your local, whatever environment that looks like. So for me, I always try to get them outside. I always try to get the students outside and exploring, especially in environmental science. One of the key things is there's not a right answer to things. Like I always tell my students, if we had right answers, we wouldn't have environmental problems. So trying to make them think. And I think that's really what the basis of Steels is. And I really think it goes beyond science. I think this is a national challenge we have right now. If we look at just the climate of our country, we don't know how to think for ourselves. We just take what we see on social media. We take what we are given, by this politician or that politician and say, this is what's right. And I think Steels challenges students to problem solve and think and discover. And that's way bigger than science. If we can get our students to do that, we're setting them up for civilization, not
life.
just,
So much
that's
better. A very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that we love the most on the show about three-dimensional learning is it's not just about knowing all the information. What do we think about it? What does our thinking come to? And then what can we do with that information?
Sure.
Not just feeling like, when I learned about these environmental issues that, oh my gosh, we're a ball of fire, that there's something that you can do or an action or those, what can you do before?
Well, that's science in general. And I think the challenge with Steels is going to be, it's not new standards. Yes, it's new standards, but it's changing the process of science. And it's changing the process of thinking. And it really needs to start from elementary, where as being involved in science, the biggest challenge is elementary. And teachers are always like, we don't have enough time. We're not given the time for this. But really, you could do all this stuff within the process of reading or math, or it's all intertwined so strongly. I think we need to get away from that in education. I think COVID's changed education, and I think it's still changing and evolving. And I think that intertwining of topics is going to be a huge way to make better students. And really, with Steels, I think it forces that a little bit in education.
It forces the de-siloing. Like everything has been so siloed. And even the way that I think it's biology doesn't have its own standards, right? So like even that in itself is a massive shift, especially in the secondary world, right? Bio doesn't have its own, right? Am I right, bio? Chemistry? Which one is it?
Well, it's like we've got life, physical, and then earth and space.
Okay.
So
like,
they're chunked together.
They're not
separate
like
strands.
Separate strands. Right. So like even de-siloing that part is massive. And then exactly what you're saying at elementary level, you can and should teach science and social studies through ELA and math. Like there's no reason why you can't give a phenomenon to an elementary kid and say, now let's go read about it. Now let's go research it. Let's go investigate. Like all of these things can and should be taking place around a natural phenomena, which Pennsylvania has through the ELNS. Like it's so integrated, and I've loved project-based learning forever, and I'm sure these guys are tired of me talking about it, but it's really what it is. It's problem-based learning.
Well, and I think one of the things I pushed a lot on the state end of things as we're doing this is that because it's not just new standards, there has to be training because it's changing the way that teachers teach. And it's so important to have that. And there's so many great things out there, great organizations, things you guys are doing is awesome, state level, national level, but it's so important that there has to be funding for training, because we can't just say, hey, here's new standards. Good luck, guys. It's, I don't know. Andrew was saying that talking to people in other states, right? It's 10 years for new standards, but 10 more years when you start changing the way teachers are thinking and teaching. It's a huge process. It's a huge undertaking that I think we're going through here in Pennsylvania.
And in Pennsylvania, we don't do such a good job of including our pre-service programs.
Right.
And so our pre-service programs are even farther behind because they're catching it as like teachers are going into colleges to start teaching. And so it's even farther behind. So if we could somehow connect our pre-service teachers to our in-service teachers and everyone gets the same training, imagine how powerful it would be for new teachers to come into the system already knowing how to handle phenomena-based learning, because they still haven't been taught that way either. And so you have to kind of like experience it. We talk about it all the time, experience it to teach it. So why not start experiencing it in pre-service?
And I'll be very honest, as somebody involved in the process, I don't fully know what it looks like in the classroom either. That's why I go to trainings and I go to these things, because sure, I know what it sounds like in philosophy, but in practice, what's that look like? So it's really changing my way of teaching and changing my way of thinking in the classroom as well.
It's a really valid point.
I think there's so many significant changes that are happening with the Steele's standards. And like you said, one of the things for me is it's actually not standards focused. And we've been so standards focused since they came around. That's like our language, right? It's almost like our weird teacher love language. I mean, let's talk about standards. Let's talk about assessment.
Well, we've been conditioned.
Sure, absolutely.
To follow the standards because that's what everybody, even ourselves, are being assessed by, whether or not you meet those standards.
It's going to be on the test.
So for sure, right? There's not placing any blame. But now we're embarking on this new journey of being learner focused. What's right for the learner, and the standards are supporting that. But now we know when we're talking about 3 dimensions of learning, like even that aspect is a different conversation than where we're like, well, hit the standards. And one thing I think is fascinating and really stuck out for me is thinking about the pre-service teacher's journey. Even if they're a program that's all about Steele's and they're like, here's how it is, here's how it works, here's how, all these ideal things. Still, they might then go to a school where they're like, oh, that's really cute that you think that. That's not actually how it works, right? Like, here's how it actually works, which is fair to say. If that teacher's saying it, then that's fair to say because that has been their experience thus far. But now we're introducing this new era, right? This new way of thinking about educating. And so I really appreciate your advocacy for further training and preparing. And what does that look like for us? And also we need that time to actually shift our mindset. In a lot of ways, this is one of Tony's favorite things. Talk about AI. Bringing that into the mix is like, do we actually have time to think? Right? Like, it's just like we're at lightning speed.
When we look at a teacher that's been teaching forever and 20, 30 years in their career, now we're like, okay, you're going to change everything you do. That's a daunting task too. So it's finding time to give teachers that. But I also think the energy of new teachers coming in, which we're struggling in Pennsylvania, I think around the country of finding new teachers, that energy and that if they're getting trained well, kind of come alongside almost the reverse mentoring that could happen of a new teacher that has the time, the energy, that's trying to figure themselves out as a teacher can help direct and guide a department or, if they're empowered to do that as well. So one of the big things that I'm a big advocate for as well is involving yourself with other teachers. So finding those spots, right? So as PA science teacher president, being able to go to conferences or to seminars or workshops or just even online communities, going to trainings and expos. And I mean, I got the privilege to spend time with these 2 wonderful educators here this summer doing a training. And it was just empowering. The stuff we did was great, but also the networking with the other teachers is so important and powerful. And hearing what somebody else is doing, and the national level is the district rep for NSTA. Philadelphia having our conference in March next year that's a spot where we can especially not just learn from teachers in Pennsylvania. Now we're looking at states like Jersey who are 10 years ahead of us, or other places like Pennsylvania is way behind on NGSS. That's a good thing in some ways because now we can just kind of copy and paste and learn and network with people all over the country who've been doing this now for 10, 15 years in some spots.
Is a really great perspective. I appreciate it so much. We've had conversation with a lot of educators that we're working with who, are looking at different programs or different things that are available. And like, for example, OpenSide is coming out with their elementary portion. How can we provide support? And a lot of our educators are like, oh man, we need this now. But to your point, we're 10 years down the road, right? When 10 years ago, there was nothing. Right. And so we are fortunate that we're learning from the experiences of others and that we can take that away and add to.
Yeah. And there's really, that's the nice thing. Like NGSS is a good foundation. So if you look at programs that have NGSS, and again, like everything else, you still have to vet things because, just because they slap a label on it doesn't mean that they're doing good science. And as one of the things I've learned going through trainings has been, hey, pick a way to just encourage students to think. If you're just trying to start out fresh, like what's that look like? So, all right, we're just gonna put a picture up and I want you to ask questions, make observations and wonder. Just let's wonder off this. Then we'll use that to build. Like if you start each lesson with that even, maybe you're not fully doing Steele's yet, but that's a great start as we're kind of learning the process of this.
I love that.
A user tip for our billions of listeners is they're looking at Steele's, and when organizations claim that they are Steele's aligned, the big question to ask is, where's the EL&S? Do you have the environmental literacy and sustainability? Otherwise, you're NGSS, so you're hitting a big part, but I need to know that you have that other component because that was important enough in Pennsylvania, as we discussed earlier, that they said, we're going to add this in. This is part of who we are. So if they're missing that part, yes, again, they're aligned to a point, but they're not going to hit all of it.
So true, yeah.
So you were a part of writing the standards. You are fortunate enough to be able to go to some of these conferences and take some beautiful trainings, probably more Patrice than Andrew. Yeah. For some of those teachers that are not able to get out of the classroom because of the lack of subs and things like that, what advice would you give to those teachers that are not able to attend these trainings or not able to go to conferences? Like, where should they start?
Yeah, I mean, I think just the online networking of things. I mean, so just the PA Science Teacher Association, we have a Facebook group, we have things like that where you can network and just chats, online. And a lot of it's summer. I mean, that's the thing. I know teachers don't like giving up their summers, but, finding that time in the summer, a lot of schools give flex time and things like that. So you can get some of those hours in the summertime. But there really is, I think the online networking, that's the thing with Twitter or X and all those different things nowadays. You can find a network. Mm-hmm. I know I was teaching AP Environmental this past year, and just the online network of that was so important, where you just get a chance to share ideas and think and talk. And, I think as educators, we get overwhelmed a lot of times, but I think it's important and refreshing when you can network with other teachers and hear those ideas and get energized. I think a lot of times a conference to me is more about that than it is necessarily about any of the other content I get. I come back so energized and ready to teach.
Completely agree with that.
Totally agree. You guys don't have a conference this year because NST is coming.
No, so we have 3 steel symposiums we're doing. Oh, nice. One up at East Stroudsburg, one at State College, and one in Pittsburgh. Yeah. So we're doing them in the fall this year. Yeah. When we have a national conference in our area, we don't do a state conference.
But you do have the symposiums.
Yeah. Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about the symposiums and then how to access those?
Sure.
And how to,
Yeah. All right. So a couple different things as PSTA representative. We do really have a great network. We have online Facebook groups. We have online trainings. We have a lot of recordings in there. And it's only $25 to be part of PSTA, which gives you great benefits. Just the networking. We do have some symposiums coming up this fall. So East Stroudsburg, State College in Pittsburgh. They're going to be one day, kind of quick hitters, chance to network, chance to hear from some speakers, and just kind of build up that community around you. Also, by joining PSTA, it gets you a $100 discount when NSTA comes to Philly in March. So that's financially a good decision. You can save $75 by joining. And really, I think the network of that, it really, again, it's inspiring for me. It's the network of teachers and just surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded. PSTA was one of the hard pushes for steels in Pennsylvania. We were pushing that since I joined the board in 2010, something like that. Jeez, it's been a while now. But the advocacy is a big part of that too, right? By being part of that network, you're part of a voice that's pushing for science education in Pennsylvania.
That's awesome. How did you get started with them?
Yeah, so my college professor, Dr. Christine Royce, has been president. She took us to the conferences when we were in college, gave us extra credit, and I kind of needed that in college. But started during that, and then just kind of after I graduated college, was going to conferences and enjoyed that community. Then eventually got asked to be on the board, and they had a spot as a vice president. Like, sounds great, not realizing that was leading to presidency in 2 years. So, but I liked it so much that I did it a second time. So that was good. And then kind of following in Dr. Royce's footsteps, she's been the national science teacher president in the past. Oh. So got involved in NSTA this year and being able to be the regional director, get a chance to represent Pennsylvania, Jersey, and New York. Wow. And again, I love that because New York and Jersey are 10 years ahead of us in standards. So it's really been good for me to network with them to hopefully bring some of that back here to Pennsylvania.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and we talked about earlier in the show, we talked about pre-service teachers and connecting them. So Dr. Royce obviously is ahead of her time that she was able to start that connection. And look at how the kind of the multiplying of that effect by doing that work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think we do have some college professors on the board, and we've had over the years. And I think, I'd encourage any college professor that might be listening, get their teachers involved. I think it's only $15 for pre-service teachers to join and to come to our conferences. It's way less expensive. And really, it's just that, again, you come away energized, you come away with resources, you're meeting different people, and really kind of sets that foundation for those pre-service teachers for sure.
I love that.
And that's pascience.org, right?
Yeah, pascience.org, yes.
Well, Andy, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, of course.
Andrew's going to let you have the 14th, the last final thought.
Yes, you get the one of the last final thoughts. There's a long-standing tradition started by someone who should not be mentioned, and I carry it on. So do you have anything that you'd like to share, or any last thoughts that you'd like to put out there?
Yeah, I think I just want to encourage teachers just to be open-minded, to start small. Don't get overwhelmed by this. It is a mountain that we're trying to climb here, and really can change education. But start small. One step at a time. We can climb a mountain if we work together. The teamwork part of things is so important. Collaborate, network, find those people around you that are inspiring. I always find that I get more charged up by those people that are fired up about what they're doing. So surround yourself with people that are doing good things and be open-minded. I think there's a lot of great stuff coming from Steels And on top of that, then come join us at our Steel Symposiums in March 26th through 29th, NSTA in Philadelphia. Yeah. Those are 2 great spots to get started, to network and just meet some new people.
It was a slam dunk since the final thought.
Second to last. And the final thought.
I had 2 major takeaways from our conversation. And the first one, we already talked about a little bit, but was that we're not standards focused, but we're learner focused. And the big thing, why that stuck out to me is I think we can say that we have this lens of being learner focused, but I actually think that in so many ways, what's happening with the new steel standards is that we're changing our prescription for our eyes. We need to literally see the world differently.
Right. Yeah.
Not look at it the same way that we have before. And standards are part of it, but now they're in the background. They're not in the foreground. So we're almost changing is that nearsighted? We're changing our nearsightedness?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm not an ophthalmologist.
But we're changing the way we see it. And the other thing is that the difference of being the expert in the room versus being the lead learner. And I think that's a really hard shift for us to make as well. Mm-hmm. What does that look like? And if this hasn't been modeled for us before, or modeled certainly with our students, what does that look like? As you were saying, huge mountain that we're trying to take on. The way that you're going to climb any mountain is
one step
journey by journey. Yeah, one step at a time. You're not just going to race up the mountain. You've actually got to climb it slowly. Sometimes you got to pause and camp overnight and then keep going. So it's a long journey. And I think that's part of it too, is that this is not a short game, but a long game.
For sure.
So Andy, thanks for coming on. Thank you for all that you do. And I also want to say all the work that you've done has actually paved the way for this world-renowned podcast. You are one of the OGs that helped allow us to be here. So
I appreciate that. Thank you for having me.
Wow. That was great.
Final thought.
Subscribe.